Hey there and welcome to Scandal Steep. Nina Simone wasn't just a musician, she was a force of nature. Her presence was so commanding that when she walked into a room, you could feel the atmosphere shift. More than just a singer, she was an icon, an artist who refused to be boxed in, a rebel who challenged the norms of the music industry, and a woman whose influence reached far beyond her songs. From the moment she first appeared on British television as the High Priestess of Soul, Nina Simone captivated audiences. But beyond the unforgettable performances and unfiltered personality, there was another side to her, one that very few people ever truly saw. Beneath the fame, behind the powerful voice and unwavering confidence, was a woman who battled demons most of her life. She didn't just break molds in music, she shattered expectations and refused to conform. But that defiance came at a cost, both to her and to those closest to her. Simone was known for her intensity, not just in her music but in every aspect of her life. She was strict, demanding perfection from herself, her band, and anyone she worked with. If you couldn't keep up, you were out. Rehearsals were no nonsense, and she didn't believe in second chances. This pursuit of excellence wasn't limited to her performances. Even her interactions with the audience were raw and unfiltered. If she felt disrespected, she would let them know, sometimes by walking off stage, other times by calling them out right then and there. Her interviews were just as legendary. Nina Simone didn't sugarcoat anything. If she thought an interviewer was being ignorant, racist, or sexist, she would make it clear with her words and her signature piercing stare. She was fearless, unapologetic, and unwilling to tolerate nonsense. But as bold and brilliant as she was in public, things were different behind closed doors. The Netflix documentary What Happened, Miss Simone? Peeled back the layers of her life, revealing the painful reality of her struggles. Her daughter, Lisa Simone, shared harrowing memories of growing up with a mother whose temper could explode in an instant. It wasn't just strict parenting, it was something much darker. The same fire that made Nina Simone a revolutionary in music and activism often burned too hot in her personal life. Lisa spoke openly about the physical and emotional turmoil she endured, painting a heartbreaking picture of a household that could switch from warmth to chaos in seconds. Understanding Nina Simone's anger requires understanding her life. She wasn't born into wealth or privilege. She was born into a world that constantly tried to diminish her. As a black woman in the 1950s and 60s, she faced relentless racism, even when she was just a child. Her dream was to become a classical pianist, but despite her extraordinary talent, she was rejected from the Curtis Institute of Music, a rejection she always believed was due to her race. That single moment altered the course of her life forever. She once said she wanted to be remembered as a diva who never wavered in her beliefs, especially about racism and the world. And she was right. Looking back, her legacy proves she was far more than just an incredible musician. She was a key figure in the civil rights movement, using her voice, both literal and metaphorical, to fight against injustice. So how did Eunice Kathleen Wayman, a girl from a poor town in North Carolina, become Nina Simone, one of the most influential artists and activists of the 20th century? It wasn't just her natural talent. It was her resilience, her unwillingness to be silenced, and her ability to turn pain into power. From an early age, her gift was undeniable. She could hear a song once and play it perfectly. Her parents, both ministers, saw something special in her and encouraged her to pursue music. At just 3 years old, she was already amazing those around her. By the time she was 11, she was invited to play at a recital, but that night, she experienced firsthand the harsh sting of racism. Her parents, who had front row seats, were told to move to the back to make room for white audience members. Young Eunice refused to play until her parents were put back in their rightful seats. It was a defining moment, one that made her skin grow back a little tougher, a little less innocent, and a little more black, as she later described it. At that time, she didn't even consider herself a singer. Her dream was to be a classical pianist, performing the works of Bach and Beethoven. She was a valedictorian in high school, and her community raised money to send her to New York's Juilliard School of Music. But her ultimate goal was Curtis Institute, and when she was rejected, her path took a drastic turn. To support herself, she took various jobs, including giving piano lessons and working as a photographer's assistant. Eventually, she found herself playing at a small bar in Atlantic City. The catch? The owner wanted her to sing, too. To keep her mother from finding out, she adopted the stage name Nina Simone. It wasn't long before her unique blend of jazz, classical, and pop drew attention, leading to a record deal. Her debut album, Little Girl Blue, in 1959 helped her land gigs at some of New York's top venues. But as was all too common in the music industry, she was taken advantage of. Without proper management, she signed away the rights to her album for just $3,000, a decision that would haunt her years later when her version of My Baby Just Cares for Me became a massive hit, making millions for others while she saw nothing. Her personal life was just as tumultuous as her career. She married jazz drummer Don Ross, but the marriage was short-lived. Then, in 1961, she married Andrew Stroud, a Harlem police detective who soon took over as her manager. He was responsible for much of her career success during the 60s, organizing major tours and making strategic moves. But behind closed doors, he was also abusive, subjecting her to years of physical and emotional torment. As the civil rights movement intensified, so did Simone's activism. She became close with intellectuals like James Baldwin and Lorraine Hansberry, and her music became more political. The 1963 murder of Medgar Evers and the Birmingham church bombing that killed 4 young black girls ignited a new level of fury in her. She channeled that rage into Mississippi Goddam, her first protest song, which became a powerful anthem for the movement. Her outspokenness came at a cost. She refused to pay taxes in protest of the Vietnam War, which led to legal troubles. Frustrated with the music industry and the racism she faced in America, she left the country in 1971, spending time in Barbados, Liberia, and eventually settling in France. Though she continued performing, her distrust of the industry never faded. In her later years, she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which helped explain the extreme mood swings she had battled for so long. Medication stabilized her, but it also dulled some of her abilities, making it harder to play piano and speak clearly. Despite this, she continued performing, remaining an icon until the very end. Nina Simone passed away in 2003 at her home in France, leaving behind a legacy that is impossible to ignore. She wasn't just a musician, she was a revolutionary. She fought battles most couldn't comprehend, and though she carried wounds that never fully healed, she never stopped pushing forward. Was she dangerous? Perhaps, but she was also unstoppable. And that's why the world will never forget Nina Simone.